Hi, g'day, this is Mike Smith. In this video I'm going to run through some of the aspects of WordPress page builders and also compare the Divi page builder with the Elementor page builder and a new product called Oxygen theme framework or site builder. So if you're not sure what a page builder is, it's a visual tool, sort of like a graphical user interface that turns the normal WordPress editor into something that allows you to lay out a page. So and I'll go into this in a little while, but you can see that there's some corresponding structure over here on the left hand side. This happens to be using the Divi Builder, and the resultant page on the right hand side. So each of these elements correspond to content over here. Okay, so let's get started. Now this video has an accompanying blog post, Making Sense of Page Builders, which I've only just written. I'm just putting the finishing touches to here. But as you can see, we're going to be looking at Divi Builder, Elementor and Oxygen. And this article and video is primarily for website owners who have just had their website designed and taking over from their web designer using the WordPress content management system. And when that happens, that handover-takeover period can be quite a perhaps productive time, or it can be completely the opposite. It could be when a website owner takes off and launches their business online, or it could be a block. And it depends on how usable that website is. So now I'll post a link to this article in the comments or in the description below the video. But basically my priorities for website design are that it has to be easy to use by the owner after taking over. And of course it also needs to be, well, the tool for designing the website needs to be easy to use by the designer as well, because if it's difficult, then it's going to take them longer, it's going to cost more to produce, and no one's happy with that. So in addition to ease of use for the owner, it must be easier for the designer as well. And of course it needs to provide the functionality that's required of the owner, and so therefore the tool, the building tool, needs to make that possible for the web designer to provide. And that goes into design flexibility as well. And the lowest priority from my point of view is the visual impact and the appearance. It's really the functionality and the ease of use that's higher. Now, if all of these things work, then it will look good as well. But if it looks good and it doesn't work, that's not really achieving the goal. So let's now this blog post has a lot more content, a lot more explanation, screenshots and all of that, and at the bottom, right down the very bottom, is this video, which will be embedded, and also links to videos for each of those page builders as well. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so if you've used WordPress at all, you would be familiar with the WordPress editor. So for example, for this blog post, this article here, if I edit it, I'll be taken to the WordPress editor. So this screen should be relatively familiar. You've got ability to put a title in there, and you've got your main content editor box here with a few minor sort of formatting tools there. But mainly your job is to add a title, write some content, perhaps nominate some categories, and then publish and update this this blog post. And you can add media, and you can do a few basic things, but really that's all you're doing. Oh, sorry, and I did forget to mention the featured image over here on the right hand side. Okay, and then the content management system takes over and it produces this page layout, but you don't have any control over, you know, the format, what happens on the right hand side, the left hand side, you know, the top in the header there, and also down here in the footer. That's all taken care of by the WordPress content management system, and specifically the theme that's chosen for this page on this site. But what if you want to lay a page out in a little more detail, particularly when we're talking about home pages, landing pages, contact pages, and about us pages. So not just the normal articles and blog posts, but all of those other specialty pages. What if we want to lay those out in a more eye-pleasing manner, and also in a more functional manner? Well, that's where page builders come in. Okay, now let's imagine you're running a shop, and so you might have your shop page here displaying your products. These are sample products from the WooCommerce plugin, and you can't really edit this page as such. Its layout is determined by the WooCommerce plugin, and to an extent you can play with it a little bit with shortcodes. So if I go to this particular product here, I've got it up in another tab, so that's this product, the Woo album. Okay, and the theme is controlling the layout here as well, the colors and the fonts and all of that, and I can change the theme. I've got a little ability to do that here. So for example, I could go for an arcade look, and so the header's changed, the font's changed, some of the layout has changed as well. It's the same content though, and that's the point. If we are to edit this product, we have control over the description and the title and obviously some of the shop related data, but we do not within the normal WordPress editor have any control over the way that it's laid out. Page builders can help with this as well in laying out your shop, and that can have a big impact on how well your shop matches your company's or your business's branding. The first page builder we'll look at is called Divi Builder. It comes from a company called Elegant Themes, and they've been around for a while. They've got a large user base, and they're quite a reliable company, reasonable prices. Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago, came out with a theme called Divi, and it was one of the first themes that offered a kind of a page layout tool like this. At first, you had to install the whole theme, but they realized that certain people would like to use this functionality within other themes, so they came out with the Divi Builder. So let's just have a quick look at that. I mentioned at the start of the video that Divi works within Divi Builder. Works within the WordPress editor. It can work with other themes. So I happen to have another theme operating here, and this is a screenshot from a fairly complex layout on the left, designed to produce that on the right. It's a little tricky to see with the page this complex. So I've got another example which is a bit simpler. So here's a fairly simple page layout that I've created with Divi Page Builder. Now it's operating within the theme. As you can see, the header and the footer is here, controlled by the theme, and it is possible to make the page builder work over the entire page, but just for this example, it's between the header and footer of the overall theme, and there's basically 4 elements on this page. There's the post title with author and date there. This is the content, main content there. There's a featured image and a search box. So I created that with Divi Builder here, and you can see that structure is mirrored in the editor. But as you can see, it's a it's a little counterintuitive, because if I wanted to work on this text here, for example, I click on that hamburger icon, and then another pop-up window comes up, and this kind of looks like the original WordPress editor, but it comes up in this dialog box, and there's a few extra bits and pieces that people might not be familiar with. The design is over here, which is great for the web designer, but there's a lot of options here to be aware of, and it's quite easy to get lost. And of course there's a scary advanced tab over here as well, which is also great for designers, what I've found though is that it's often easy to forget what you've done here at this code level, and that could be a problem unless the website has been properly documented, particularly if you haven't worked on the design of your website for a while. So anyway, there's a lot of functionality here, but it's a little bit unusual in terms of editing. Okay, so normally what I recommend is put these pages side by side, and I'll do that in a moment. Okay, so let me just organize my workspace here a little bit. I'm going to duplicate this tab and then move that new tab to a new window. Okay, put that on the right, put this on the left. Okay, so now I've got my editing screen on the left and my resulting page on the right hand side, and you need a fairly large monitor for this to work. It doesn't really work very well on a on a laptop monitor, for example. There's another way of working with Divi, which I'll show you in a moment, but this works a little better. So for example, if I wanted to add another module, I could do this here on the left hand side. For example, I could put an image there, or I could put a login, or I could put an audio file, or whatever I wanted to do. A button, let's just do a button. That's nice and quick. Press here, save. Alright, so that's there. Now what I need to do is update this page on the left, and once that's done, refresh on the right. Yep, and there should be a button right here. Alright, and that's all there is to it, really. So as you can see, it's quite easy to work with the Divi Builder, as long as you can visualize what's going on, and working left and right here seems to work pretty well. Now, to be fair, the designers of the Divi Builder, Elegant Themes, have responded to this kind of workflow challenge and provided an alternative way for you to edit the page, and that's called the Visual Builder. So that's another way to edit this page. And if you press the Enable Visual Builder button up here, I've got this open in another tab here, you'll end up with something like this. At first it doesn't look any different until you start mousing over the screen, and you can see that the structure of the page is actually kind of in real time mirroring what's happening in the editor on the left. I can edit stuff directly here. So for example, I can move things around. Put the button above the image. I can also edit this text if I want. So that brings up an edit box over the top of the screen. So again, this wouldn't be a great idea on a really small screen, and you really need a mouse. I couldn't imagine you would do this on a touch screen tablet, for example. Yep, so that works pretty well. Okay, so that's the visual builder of Divi Builder. So you've got two options to work with a page layout. You've got the editor, the Divi Builder editor, which operates within the standard WordPress editor, and it takes the place of the WordPress text editor. And then you've got the visual builder as well. So that's great. Now, I'm concerned with usability, particularly if I'm designing a website and then handing it over to an owner. So let's just have a look at what's going on here a little more closely. Now, there's a couple of things. I'll just turn this back to 2 columns, standard. Okay, now there's a couple of things here that most websites would not normally have. There's this extra bar here for Oxygen, which I'll talk about in a minute. There's another button here for Elementor, which is the other page builder. So it's possible to run 3 different page builders at the once. Obviously, you probably wouldn't do that on a normal website, but I'm just demonstrating things here. The point I want to make is that I've just created this
layout with Divi Builder. Normally you would just use you would see the Divi Builder, use Visual Editor, and use the default editor. This green button here takes you back to the original WordPress editor. If you were to press that, you would actually lose, most likely. You would lose all the work that's been put into this. And if you had one of those really complex layouts, that could be pretty frustrating. So what I'm concerned about is the accidental pressing of that button by the WordPress owner or other authors who are authorized to work on this site. So I think it's a risky architecture, this Divi Builder. That's just my 2 cents worth though. Let's look at some other options. Okay, time to look at the Elementor page builder, and I've created another page with a kind of a similar layout to the one we've just been looking at, created by Divi Builder, and this one's created in Elementor page builder, and we'll look at how that works and the workflow for that. Alright, now Elementor is produced by Elementor.com. It comes as a free version as well as a pro version. And I've got a link to this this commercial site here in the comments, but let's just see how it works in practice. As you can see, it's going to look a little different from the Divi Builder, but it's got elements that we can add in kind of a similar way. Alright, let's go back to this page here. Okay, so the layout's very similar to what we had before. If I want to edit this page, you'll see at the top Elementor have helpfully put this Edit with Elementor button. So for any page that's been edited with Elementor, this button will come up in the toolbar, which is a visual prompt that work has been done on this page with Elementor. If I use the normal edit page, that'll take me to the WordPress editor. So that's what I'll do first. So now I just want to point out that it would be actually not quite correct to do this, but I'll show you what happens anyway. If you press edit page as you would normally do, then you're taken back to the WordPress editor, and then you've got to remember to press this edit with Elementor. And in the same way as before with Divi, you've got this back to WordPress editor, which is potentially going to remove all the Elementor content that you've worked on. So it doesn't necessarily happen, but it could happen. So again, this interface is a bit risky to hand back to a website owner. Just disregard the Divi Builder down here. Okay, so what should happen is that you actually edit with Elementor. So, and if you do that, you end up going straight into the Elementor editor, which looks like this. And as you can see, you can actually see the page on the right here, and in the same screen you've got your elements on the left, and that works really well. So you don't need a split screen, it all works on the one screen. That's one big advantage of Elementor. So this is kind of similar to the visual editor of Divi, but with the added benefit of having all of your tool sets on the left hand side always visible. Okay, so oh, and by the way, I'm using the free version here, so there's a relatively limited set of tools here, but as you can see, there's more than in the standard Divi Builder. Plus, there is a ton of extra stuff available via WordPress plugins, both free and premium, to add extra functionality, and that's an ecosystem that's worth watching, and that might be Elementor's strength over Divi. So there's the whole WordPress community adding functionality to this, similar to the whole WordPress community adding functionality to WooCommerce. Also, as I mentioned with Divi, at the moment the Elementor page content sits between the header and the footer, controlled by the theme, but it is possible to make this take over the whole page simply by specifying a blank template. Okay, so here is some text. Here is a search bar, here is an image. If I just click on this, the left side turns into a bit of an edit screen specifically for that element. So I can set the image size, its alignment, and a few other bits and pieces here. Similar to Divi, but arguably a little more comprehensive and also a little quicker to get to where you want to go. That's a pro feature there. Okay, so right, so there's you have this ability to edit stuff on the left hand side there. There's a title. Let's see, so I can edit it there. I think I can edit it there as, yeah, I can edit it there, or I can edit it here on the left. Okay, so that's great. And if I want to update the page, I've got my update here, save button there, and if I want to return to the dashboard, I can do that there. If I want to go back to my widgets, I just click on that icon. And if I want to do what I did with the other page, drag a button over, I'll just mouse over this and then drag a button to wherever I want it to be in this layout. So I'm going to put it underneath the image. And there's my button there. And I can make it centered there. So that's kind of similar to what we did with the Divi page. Then I would update it, and well, let's do that. Let's go through the update process as well. Okay, so it's worth noting that there are some extra steps to updating a page. So I've got to update it here. Okay, so waiting for that. Yep, and then I've got to exit to dashboard. And then I've got to, I'll just bring that down again, I've got to update my page here as well. And of course it's easy to forget this last step here. I've done it myself, and then it ended up wondering why the page update hasn't actually happened and all the work was lost. So there's my button there. Okay, so that's Elementor, and I think from a workflow point of view, it's a little superior to Divi. Even though Divi has that extra option of on-screen editing using the Visual Builder, I still think that this format of having your page content in the main area here and your widgets on the left here, and also the ability for the WordPress community to add more, I think that makes it a bit better than Divi Builder from a usability point of view for the designer, and then also from a functionality point of view for the end result for the website. Okay, so we've now looked at Elementor here and also Divi. And they're both great page layout tools. They have advanced website design a long way from a few years ago. It's so much easier now to create beautiful websites. I'm a little concerned about the risk of doing damage to the website because of the way that the return to default WordPress editor is kind of managed in the edit window here for Divi, and then also for Elementor. The other thing to consider as well is that if either of these plugins were turned off, their fallback is not very graceful. I'm not going to look at it in this particular video, but it's something to be aware of. You need those plugins to remain active on the website. Okay, so now let's look at one final option. Oh, before I finish, there is another visual editor called Visual Composer, and that would be somewhat similar to the Divi Builder here as well. Visual Composer, that's another popular choice. Okay, the last item we're going to look at is Oxygen, and this is a site builder. It's not just a page builder, it's not just a theme, it's not just a theme framework, it's an entire site builder. So I'm just going to give you a really brief look at this, and basically I think this is the way that I'm going to build websites from now on. So let's look at Oxygen. Okay, now before we show you the Oxygen interface, I've created another page similar to the one that I did for Elementor and for Divi. You know, with a page title up here and some text and then a search box and an image and a couple of other things here that I've added with Oxygen. So let's look at how that was put together. Now you may have noticed with the note here, Oxygen allows me to generate a layout, but it also allows me to still use the default WordPress editor to edit the actual main content. So let's see how that works. Going over to edit the page, and the difference with Oxygen is I can edit with Oxygen or I can edit the page. If I edit with Oxygen, I'm going to go into the page layout screen, and if I edit the page, I'm going to go into the WordPress content editing screen. So let's look at that. Okay, so first we're going to see what happens if we press this button, edit page. And I've got that open in another tab here. So this looks a little more familiar. I'm just going to minimize this for a moment. Just ignore the Elementor and Divi Builder buttons here. What you can see is a standard WordPress editing screen, and this is where you would edit the content. You edit content here and the title up there, and then you press update just as you would normally, and that would then be reflected in the page title up here and the content down here. So that works, and it's a more familiar interface for website owners and authors using the site. Now just bearing in mind up here, if I didn't have Divi Builder or Elementor enabled on a site, I was just using Oxygen by itself, then this middle button here wouldn't be there. So really it would just look like edit page or edit with Oxygen. So all I need to do is tell the website owner, if you want to edit content, press edit page. If you want to edit format or the layout, then edit with Oxygen. That would only be necessary if the layout needed changing. Most likely that job would fall back on the web designer, but some website owners do want to learn how to do that. So you've got two separate workflows here, and I think that's a really good idea. Let's now look at editing with Oxygen. Okay, now I've got this open in another tab here, and this is the Oxygen layout editor. Alright, now it kind of looks similar to what we had before, but there are some significant differences which I'll go into in a moment. You've got three elements to the screen, or three areas of the screen. This left area here, the main window in the middle, and then a structure bar on the right hand side. Okay, so if I want to edit some text, for example, like this text I've put here and this text I've put here, this text I've put up here, that is a text box. So I click on there, it's highlighted over here. You can see the structure of the page here, and if I click on that, I can edit that on the spot, because that's a text box. So I can make changes there, as you can see. And I can also insert elements. For example, I've got an image over here, and if I click on that, as I've done, then I've got some controls over here to control the width and the height, the link, and also some advanced CSS appearance related settings here, size and spacing, all of this. And as you go through this, some of this stuff will not be familiar to website owners. Display, float, overflow, clear, visibility, position, flexbox, all of that stuff is advanced CSS. HTML and CSS work together to create appearance. So this is clearly giving very low level control over the appearance of elements on the page, and it's actually quite extraordinary. You can put custom CSS here as well, and that allows you to do practically anything you can imagine. You can also add JavaScript programming code here,
which is pretty amazing as well. And practically everything that you could possibly imagine is here. And as you can see, the workflow is quite well thought out. All of these tools are on the left hand side. You can see the results in the middle, and you've got the page structure on the right hand side. So this is a really nice effective layout. A little too advanced for most website designers to cope with. They would have to go back to school to learn basic HTML, CSS and JavaScript, and PHP maybe even. But if you've got a background in those skills, then this is going to give you a lot of power and flexibility, incredible functionality. Most new website owners would be completely intimidated by an interface like this. Some website designers would also, but really swept up web designers would just love an interface like this. Okay, now let's do what we did before on the other two builders. Let's put a button here, see how that works. So there's a big blue add stuff on the left side here, and our button is right there. But just before we do that, let's have a bit of a look at what else is available. Lots of really functional components here. Not just elements, but entire design sets. So I'll just bring up one of these, and these ship with this version of Oxygen, which is quite reasonably priced, and so entire sets or just elements, headers, footers, heroes, pricing tables, all sorts of stuff in multiple examples, and you can mix and match and change colors, and obviously adapt these as you require. What we just want to do is put a button here, so let's do that. Okay, so these buttons are in the Basics tab here. That's the button there. Now, this is not just a drag and drop thing here. So for example, if I drag this over here, I can't just actually drop it anywhere. That doesn't actually work. I've got to click on it, but to indicate where I want the button to go, I need to make sure that I'm in the right spot. So I want it to be just after that image there, that brain image there. So thereabouts anyway. Okay, so let's go back to button, click on that, and there's my button in there. Now I can move it around, and I use the structure here to move it around if I want to. So that's okay. And then I can double click on that to edit the button, and then I can control the URL and so on and so forth. So that's how I add a button. Okay, and finally I want to save, so I would save that there, and that saves the layout and the content, and then I could go back to the WordPress dashboard or to the front end to look at this page. Now, what is it that makes this so much better than Elementor and the Divi Builder is that these two particular boxes are not normal text. So this is text that I can edit directly, but if I click on here, you can see that that's actually a shortcode for the page title, and this is shortcode for the content. So what that means is that these are direct connections to the WordPress database, and that allows the website owner to edit that content directly using the very familiar WordPress editor. That's the difference really here. And these connections directly through to the database are made possible through some of the widgets that are here, either through a code block or various other actions that allow you to connect to the WordPress dynamic data. So using these widgets here, that is very powerful from a functionality point of view, but it's also very useful from a
usability point of view as well. So that's really good. Okay, now as I mentioned right at the very beginning, I'm interested in usability both from the owner's perspective and also from the website designer's perspective, as well as functionality and finally appearance. Now, as you can see with an interface like this, you can certainly hit all of those functionality and appearance objectives, and also usability for the website designer. The fact that the owner can manage content using the standard WordPress editor means that it's also usable for the WordPress website owner, I should say. And their interface, just ignoring this visual builder thing in the middle here, which wouldn't be there probably, is all you need to do is train the website owner to mainly use edit page, and the website designer can play with Oxygen to change layouts. So that's where I am as a website designer at the moment. So I'm moving all my websites from Divi, and more recently I was working with Elementor. Now I'm using Oxygen because it gives me complete control over a website, and it provides a usable interface for the owner as well. Alright, so that's Oxygen. Okay, so that was a fairly brief introduction to 3 different page builders, and the last one being much more than a page builder, or a site builder if you will. And I certainly hope that has helped clarify what page builders are, why it might be better to choose one over another, and also for website designers, I hoped to highlight some of the issues that website owners might face when they are taking over the work that has been created for them. This blog post article URL will be added to the video description. Thanks very much for watching, and please post questions in the comments. Thank you.